Hey y'all, how are you doing? I'm great. Thank you so much for asking. It's me, Kim, and I'm back for another video. We're still in the middle of a pandemic, and who knows how long this is going to go on. So I've officially begun doing my own hair. I'm going to be honest, I've never really had to do this in my adult life. And so the process of trying to figure it out has really been something else. I'm documenting the whole thing over on Patreon/membership. So you can go over there and look at me try to figure out what products to use and how to put in the curlers and taking it out and having a mental breakdown over it, basically. But I'm very proud of myself, okay? Love yourself, embrace it, do your own stuff, stay safe, stay healthy. That's what I'm doing. So it's a whole thing. Go check it out. But we're here today to talk about Self-Made, the miniseries about Madam C.J. Walker over on Netflix. And it took me a minute to get this together because I had so much fun doing the research. I had so much fun, and every time I thought I was done, I found another article or another book. Before we begin, I have to acknowledge that these 4 books were essential to me being able to craft this video. The first one is Black Fortunes by Shamari Willis. The second one is Hair Raising by Noliwe Rooks. The third one is Beauty Shop Politics by Tiffany Gill. And the fourth one is Self-Made, a biography of Madam C.J. Walker by A'Lelia Bundles, who was actually Walker's great-great-granddaughter. I'm so excited because I'm actually going to be interviewing her here in a couple of days, so keep your eye out for that. It is important for me to cite those books because Black historians matter. We have to remember that they do the work that enables us to come here and have these conversations, because I did not go digging in the archives for this, okay? It's them. But thankfully, they laid that foundation so that we can build on it. Last weekend, I watched Self-Made on Netflix. I am very fascinated, like many of us are, about the life story of Madam C.J. Walker, and it wasn't great. Right? You know me, I have standards. I'm not just going to say stuff is good just to say it. It wasn't great. The costuming was beautiful. Octavia Spencer was very, very good. The lighting was gorgeous, but it was very poorly made in many ways. But this is not going to be a video of me really tearing the film or the miniseries apart. Other people have already done that masterfully. And frankly, I didn't even find the series compelling enough in either a good or bad way to really rip it apart, to meticulously dig through it. But I have some thoughts about the liberties that were taken with the stories of both Madam C.J. Walker and Annie Malone. And I've been trying to figure out, is this a biopic? I'm not even sure if that is an appropriate description. I mean, it does say that this film is inspired by the life of Madam C.J. Walker, which is frankly an insult. So let's be clear that in Hollywood, making up stuff for biopics is very standard. It happens to icons of all races. Like, I love this show called The Crown on Netflix. It is so good. It's about the British royal family, and Peter Morgan, the screenwriter, acknowledges that he takes lots of liberties, and we don't care because it's great. It's so entertaining. However, the stakes are much higher when we're talking about depictions of Black icons, Black historical figures, because we know that our historical figures are not getting 5 films made about them like JFK. I mean, unless your name is Martin Luther King, if you get a biopic, that's your biopic, right? One shot. That's it. And I do think that it is incumbent upon Black filmmakers, even though it's not their fault, they didn't make this system, you have to be judicious in the choices that you're making when you're choosing to make these movies. What a lot of viewers, myself included, are left asking after they watch a series like Self-Made is, why are you making those choices? What were the motivations? And who does that serve? I've read A'Lelia Bundles' brilliant biography of her great-great-grandmother. It's now called Self-Made, and I could not put it down. It was so thorough. It was beautifully written. There were so many scenes that I could just vividly see in my head. And some of the best parts of that biography were not in that 4-part series. They were either completely excluded or they were just glossed over, like barely mentioned. Why? It is insane to me that you could have read that biography or read so many other things about Madam C.J. Walker and just been like, let's just make some stuff up. Why? Why do that? And I know that there were a ton of Black people behind the making of this film, Black producers, Black directors, Black women writers. I get it. Still, Missed opportunity. And just FYI, sometimes I'm going to refer to her as Madam Walker or Sarah because those are her names. CJ Walker was her husband, so we don't need to call her that. All right, so one of the reasons why filmmakers say they have to make up things in biopics is because they need conflict. They need something that's going to draw the viewer in. I get it. I completely understand that. Nobody wants to watch a boring movie, but there was so much real conflict in her life that was neglected for this silly fake conflict. So let's go through all the missed opportunities for storytelling. The big one that everybody seems to be talking about is the story of Addie Monroe in the series. Her likeness is kind of patterned off of Annie Malone. Annie Malone was a real woman, an exceptional entrepreneur, and I don't even want to say that they weren't trying to do that. Don't give me that. I don't care about that. Because if they were not trying to make us draw comparisons to the actual Annie Malone, then why give her a name that is so similar? Why kind of make the story similar? No, it's irresponsible. In the series, Addie Monroe is positioned as Madam Walker's nemesis. She represents the light-skinned, wavy-haired ideal that often antagonizes darker-skinned Black women, both literally and psychologically. But the real-life Annie was nothing like that. Yes, she and Walker were rivals, but like a different kind of rivals. Not that silly supervillain stuff that they tried to do in this film. She was a little bit younger than Walker. She also was the child of parents who were formerly enslaved, and she was orphaned early, just like Madam Walker. She was a chemist. She created her own line of hair products, including a product called the Wonderful Hair Grower. But no, she was not the mulatto ideal. What they tried to paint her as in the film is not what she actually was or what she actually looked like. When I started doing the research to put this together, I was getting more and more upset about the way they depicted Annie Malone because she did not deserve that at all. They completely misrepresented her legacy and her life, and that's upsetting to me because for a lot of people, that series is going to be their first and only interaction with that story, and they've been completely misled. Why tear down one Black woman's legacy to uplift another Black woman's legacy? Because in real life, the real Annie Malone was incredibly impressive. She was exceptional, and she did a lot of stuff before Walker. She made beauty schools before Walker. She employed Black women as sales agents before Walker. She created this huge $1 million revenue business before Walker. And in real life, Annie Malone was also very, very charitable. In the 1920s, she gave the largest gift from an African American to Howard University. She built orphanages. She did so much around the city of St. Louis. Like, don't discount that. Don't dismiss that. Now, we don't hear about Malone often because those records just weren't kept well. But I've seen things that say that she had $1 million before Walker. Malone's website says that she is the first Black woman millionaire in the United States. It says that she had $14 million in 1924. Now, I don't know about that. I don't really have a way to verify that, but what I do know is that claims that Madam Walker was definitively the first self-made millionaire in the United States, they're dubious at best. There is not documentation to support that claim. And in fact, in the biography by Bundles says that Walker died with a net worth of $600,000. What we know is Madam C.J. Walker was introduced to the business of Black hair care by Annie Malone. She worked for Annie Malone's company while she was a washerwoman in St. Louis, or shortly after. We also know that Walker moved from St. Louis to Denver, and that's when she launched her own hair care company, where she began to sell the Wonderful Hair Grower. She even took the woman's product name. Now, there is some controversy about whether or not Walker actually stole Malone's formula. I don't know. Bundle says that she didn't, and that those kinds of hair care concoctions had been around for a long time before that. That's true. Bundles also says that Walker knew a pharmacist, and Walker worked with the pharmacist to add things and change things and to perfect her own formula. I don't know about that. All I know is Malone had a wonderful hair grower, and then Walker had a wonderful hair grower, okay? If I had to bet, I'd say Walker stole the lady's idea, but that's just me. I don't know. Now, Annie Malone certainly thought Madam Walker ripped her off because they beefed publicly in the respectable early 20th century way. I mean, Malone went so far as to take out ads in Denver saying, "Do not buy from that woman. She is a fraud." Now, that's good drama. That is good, real drama. Why would you trade good real drama for bad fake drama? I don't understand. Now, I understand that if you tell the real story, that does not make Madam Walker look 100% great, right? Like, she does not look perfect if you tell the real story, but so what? Our icons, our heroes are imperfect. And what really set Walker apart was her exceptional marketing skill and her hustle. She was a genius. She still built an incredible business, even if the beginnings maybe were a little bit shady. But the way the series used Malone's likeness to tackle colorism was inflammatory and frankly, borderline slanderous. We know colorism is real. It's still real, okay? We're still grappling with it. But pitting two exceptional Black women against each other in that way, I mean, literally putting them against each other in a boxing ring, how gross. But also, it's even more gross because Walker wasn't all the way right. If Annie Malone had it out for Madam C.J. Walker, she probably had a point. And the way that colorism was discussed in this series was so facile. It was so silly. It was like the writers watched one YouTube video or read one tweet thread and just threw that in there. To reduce Madam Walker's story just down to colorism is wrong. It's just wrong. It's ahistorical. What are you doing? What are you reading? Because if you really read about Madam Walker's story, you know that class is so important. And yes, color and class intersect, but it is more complicated than high yellow gal versus dark-skinned woman. She was very class conscious, and we see that all throughout her story. And this is another real conflict that is rife with dramatic potential. Because Walker's move from Mississippi to St. Louis, where she was a washerwoman, is where she encountered the very elitist Black women's club movement, right? Those women were all about respectability. It's what are you doing for the community? It's uplift the race. And you can't really be a part of that if you do not have the class standing. That means that until Walker worked her way up, built this business, she was always going to be on the outside. And then when she became a philanthropist and gained social standing, then she had a position to be able to lecture those elitist club women about who they're looking down on. And she always made sure to represent for women who did not have upper class standing, who weren't middle class, who were not professional Black women. She always did that. That was such a part of her legacy. And the fact that we didn't see those potential conflicts, right? There could have been such good dialogue about that. The fact that we didn't see that it makes me so mad, you guys. Now, we can have our critiques, but the actual history of the Black women's club movement is so remarkable. It was Black women banding together to work for their communities. And Madam Walker wanted to take part in that. And it should be noted that all of those club women weren't light, bright, high yellow. Now, a lot of them were. But Nanny Helen Burroughs wasn't light-skinned. Not at all. Very elitist, very respectable woman, very accomplished woman. Not light-skinned. Eventually, Madam Walker worked her way into those circles. Not light-skinned. So we would have done so well to really see that class stratification in St. Louis. I can literally picture this in my mind, women with the early 20th century garb, with the hats and the gloves and the dresses, bustling around St. Louis. In Bundle's biography, there are so many interesting stories about that time, about that community. And then we really could have examined the intersection of sexism and elitism. The actual story of what happened between Madam C.J. Walker and Booker T. Washington is amazing. That was one of my favorite parts of the biography. There were so many parts of that story, it's just too much to outline here, that are perfect for a film. So why make it up? Why make it up when, in the end, Booker T. Washington ended up embracing Madam C.J. Walker? They were very close, really good, well, maybe not friends, but acquaintances, professional acquaintances. He did not choose Annie Malone over Madam C.J. Walker. That was also fabricated. For what? So what are y'all doing? And they also misrepresented Margaret Murray Washington. It makes me frustrated again because the second episode of this series was fake news. Complete fabrications, just made up for no reason. You had 4 parts and you wasted 1 part on stuff that is completely unfactual. And Booker T. Washington also represented another really important conflict that wasn't even touched on in this series. He did not want to promote hair straightening, and a lot of those more respectable club women did not want to promote hair straightening either. Now, that's complicated because the issue of beauty is not just about vanity. It's not just about being frivolous. It's also a matter of social mobility and access to resources, which is something that Madam Walker really understood. But it would have been great to have that kind of juicy, meaty conversation on film. And that industry allowed so many Black women to be financially independent. It allowed them to no longer depend on men for their livelihoods. That's a big deal. And Madam Walker really played that up when she was recruiting sales agents. Now, that's a big deal, but white beauty standards are still a thing. And she also had to contend with these accusations that she was preying on Black women's feelings of inferiority. Now that's real. That's a real conflict. Let's talk about that. Did we see that in the film? I'm not upset that this series was not 100% factual. That's just not a reasonable expectation. I am upset that it was sloppy. I understand that a lot of our records of that time are they're non-existent. We don't have the financial records. People weren't really keeping diaries. We don't have tweets, right? So you've got to fill in a lot of gaps. But there are things that there's no excuse for them to be wrong. Like there's factual stuff, historical stuff that just wasn't right. Like Alelia talked about the new Negro and Du Bois. That's not Du Bois's idea. That's Alain Locke. What are you talking about? Now, of course, you're going to have to make up dialogue. You're going to have to fill in the blanks. You're going to have to think for yourself about what somebody's internal motivations were. We know that Sarah was in a really kind of abusive situation, and that's why she ran off and got married at 14. She had a baby when she was 17. She was widowed at 20, and then she moved to Mississippi. We don't know exactly what she was thinking and feeling. There's no real first-hand accounts of that stuff, but you could make educated guesses. I prefer you make an educated guess than just make up new myths. And you know what? I also think that they glossed over what a committed race woman Madam C.J. Walker was. They really painted her as being just super about capitalism and the individualistic accumulation of wealth. And yeah, like we saw her home. Have you seen her home? She definitely was about showing it off and stunting, and we saw her car. But she was very much about investing in her communities. That's a different kind of ethos from a Rockefeller. And Madam Walker was very committed to the anti-lynching cause. She was very involved. So instead of actually highlighting that, we just get this lynching moment in the series. We get a lynching scene instead of talking about what she herself was actually doing. Also, there was an attempted sexual assault that was thrown in there. I did not see that in any of my research, so you're just using that for more drama. I object to that. But also, and this is really, really important, there is no evidence that Alelia Walker was gay. There is no evidence that she had a same-sex relationship in her life. It just does not exist. Now, what there is evidence that Alelia Walker, while she was in Harlem, was very, very supportive of queer communities. That she had parties where people were getting together in all different kinds of ways. But they really leaned hard into completely making that up. And I gotta tell you that I've spent so much time thinking about this and really reimagining these scenes in my mind and doing this research that I feel like I want to do a Madam C.J. Walker movie. I know that that's like famous last words and maybe somebody else will get to it first, but I feel like compelled to do it, and I've never felt compelled to make anything before like that. Like, it deserves a proper representation, and this was not it. And I want to be fair because maybe Netflix wanted a sensationalized story. Maybe they made a real story, a good story, and they sent it to Netflix and they're like, no, you know what Black people like? Jump cuts. Black people like dancing. Black people like fantasy scenes. And so that's what we got. But that's not what we want. We want a real story. And I feel like we need to question the motivation behind giving us an inspired by story before giving us an actual biopic. A lot of people aren't going to read the articles. They're not going to read the books. And this is going to be it for them. And that is scary to me because we learned so much misinformation about our heroes. I learned growing up that Madam C.J. Walker invented the hot comb. She did not. And even this claim about her being the first self-made millionaire, female millionaire, probably not right. So why not utilize this opportunity to set the record straight? Why instead choose to contribute to the misinformation, to contribute to those myths? There were a whole lot of Black people involved with the making of this movie, but frankly, I'm done congratulating people for just making something. What are you making? What are the consequences of that? So yeah, I like that a lot of people got work, writers got work, producers got work, but that does not minimize the many failures of this series. And it really seems like filmmakers, even the black ones, do not trust black audiences. They don't trust us to deal with complicated stories, to handle nuance and complexities. What they do is just give us this silly melodrama. But trust us, we're smart. We know things. We like art too, right? We don't always have to do the Tyler Perry-fication or the Disney-fication of a story for us to get it or to enjoy it. And we should also probably talk about Kasi Lemmons, who made Eve's Bayou, but she also made Harriet, and Harriet was a mess in many ways. I really hated in Harriet how they tried to make Harriet Tubman into a superhero. Why? And Kasi Lemmons directed the first 2 episodes of this series, which were not good. So maybe for her, like, the biopics, the inspired by pictures are just not her lane, and that's okay. We know that she can do brilliant work. This just wasn't it. But also, we need to leave the inspired by stuff alone. Leave it alone. It feels like clout chasing. That's what it feels. It feels like you're trying to use the name of somebody who actually lived, the name of somebody who we all know and who we want to celebrate. You're trying to use their name to put forth your own agenda or tell the own story that you've had in your head for years. Stop doing that. They deserve better. There's so much to say about Black women's beauty culture and the rituals we have around it and its significance in our communities. And it's sad to me that it wasn't really taken seriously here. This was just an unserious movie, to be honest. But that culture deserves a real rigorous exploration, and hopefully one day we'll get it. I think we should give creatives a lot of space to tell stories, that they should be able to build worlds and bring us into them. But there is something patently unethical about lying on people who actually lived, especially when your fabrications make them look bad. Especially when we know that those stories are already marginalized. It takes so much for us to even be able to see their stories. Why contribute to misinformation? In conclusion, stop being reckless with Black people's stories. The stakes are too high. We have too much to lose. And we have too much to gain when the stories are told well. Well, that's all I have to say about that, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. I know y'all have thoughts, and I know y'all have thoughts because so many people have hit me up about Self-Made. Y'all have wanted me to talk about this, so tell me what you thought. I know y'all didn't like it. Okay, I already know, but tell me anyway. Shout out to the patrons. Shout out to the members. The next thing that we're going to talk about over there is Tiger King on Netflix. Did y'all see that series? It was a wild ass ride. And you know, as an Oklahoman, I have some thoughts, so we're gonna do a real deep dive into that. I'm so excited because that was a mess. Thank y'all so much for your support, and thank you guys so much for contributing to our mutual aid project. We have gotten over like 24 people money. That's a lot of people. Thank you for being so generous, and thank you to my amazing assistant, Ashley. She has facilitated all of this giving. She has recommended people to me. It would not have happened without her. It's hard. These are hard times, and we don't know how long these hard times are going to last. So it makes me feel good that we can help each other. Well, that's it. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.